We're looking at chapter 10 of our text that deals with presentational aids and technology. The first section dealt with the nature of presentational aids. The second section dealt with types of presentational aids. And in this video lecture, we'll look at the last two, and that is technology-based presentational aids. And then last, the effective use of presentational aids, some do's and don'ts, some helpful guidelines. So, some technology-based presentational aids. Of course, technology is all around us. It's so easy to access it these days. You may decide to use some visual aids that are not visual, more of an audio clip into your speech, and sometimes that is helpful. You may include some video clips, some online media sharing sites. You may show snippets of a press conference or movie clip to illustrate or emphasize a particular point, and that can be effective and interesting. So some things to keep in mind when using technology is, especially when using a camera, when recording something, eye contact should be direct and sustained, and strong speakers avoid moving their heads too much, and their eyes and their hands. Posture certainly is important, as the camera may not be as forgiving of imperfections as a live audience might be, so keep your posture erect. When speaking in a radio broadcast and there's no video and it's all about your voice has got to carry everything. It's important to have a basic profile first of the listeners within that particular programming market, and you want to establish common ground with them, no matter what the medium, but especially so if you're using radio. Being alone in a room with a microphone may be difficult, but work to sound energetic, energize yourself, deliver your speech enthusiastically as if there is a live audience in front of you. Be aware that pauses are powerful tools, although they may seem a lot longer when the listeners can't see you. Since your audience is not present, their awareness of your pacing, your articulation, your pronunciation becomes a whole lot more obvious to them. So once you are on the air, focus on speaking clearly and passionately, and work to use pauses strategically and avoid non-fluencies like I just used, well, you know what I mean, and things like that. You may do some video conferencing, and I'm sure you've done this, especially with Teams, with Zoom. And so the text goes through a computer-based system. What that includes, a webcam and software. It's old school at this point. It's outdated information, what a desktop is. A studio-based system certainly offers the best quality, but it's also pricey. So the last part deals with the effective use of presentational aids. So here's some criteria for adding a visual to your presentation. You must first of all ask, number one, what the value is to the presentation. Make sure that what you select and include adds meaning or impact. Don't just add it for the sake of adding it another slide. If you're bringing something to a physical object to a classroom, if the item is precious to you, think twice about bringing it. It may get broken. It may get lost. Think of ease of transportation, how difficult it will be to bring your aid, as well as what are you going to do with it after this class and you have other classes. The size of the object and the size of the audience, make sure the audience is able to see it. Otherwise, you're the only one that enjoys it. Some principles for presentational aids include, number one, do not let your presentational aid distract your audience. Make sure, that you select something that adds meaning or impact. And if handouts are necessary, distribute them. Probably the best time at the end of the presentation, or if you distribute them at the beginning of the presentation, allow the audience to look through it, give them a minute or so to look through it, and then direct their attention back to you. Be aware of timing and pauses. That's the second one. Display each visual only as you talk about it. Do not force people to choose between paying attention to you and paying attention to your aid. Your aid will win outright, forgive me. So pause, allow them to look at the visual. This moment of silence gives your audience time to look at the display. 3, make sure the equipment is working, but be prepared for failure. So what is your plan B? And then 4th, use multimedia presentations only with careful planning and practice. If things can go wrong, they probably will. And the more you practice, the better. The more fluid it will seem. It will flow better. So when you think about making and using computer-generated images, again, choose an aid that fits your purpose, the occasion, and your audience. If you have any doubts about the appropriateness of a visual, leave it out. Again, start with the end in mind. What is your specific purpose? The audience will. And in light of what you want them to do, work backwards. That'll help you decide what you need to keep in or put place in. Emphasize only relevant points, so keep your visuals simple and convey only one idea per slide. Only one idea per slide. If it's a very busy graphic, break it up in some way so that you can maybe show the whole slide and then add different text to different places. Otherwise, having all of the text on one diagram and seeing it, it's just way too much. It just won't work. Implement the rule of 6. Use no more than 6 words per line and no more than 6 lines per slide. And then 4th, select appropriate design features. Make sure that your font is at least a size 24 in terms of the font size, and that your font color complements the template that you are using. And then this one is important. Don't allow your presentational aid to upstage you. Remember, the audience has come to listen to you, not to see your visual aids. Be protective of the beginning and end of your presentation, because you want the audience to look at you at the beginning and at the end. So don't ever start with an aid or never end with an aid. After you set the tone of your speech and introduce your main idea, then you can go to a visual aid. Preview and practice. During your practice session, focus on your audience and not on your presentational aid. You don't want to look at your visual aid. Don't turn your back to your audience. Have something that's in front of you where you can look at the visual aid. Make sure slides are in the correct order and that the font time, font color, and font size are consistent. Proofread. Run a spell check. And one way to avoid sounding as though you're reading to the audience is through practice. You may want to create a blank slide between visual aids so that once you are finished with dealing with that visual and you're not ready to go to the second visual, have a blank slide in between. All right, that's the essence of the last 2 sections and of this chapter. Thank you.